Before we begin, please subscribe to the channel. I promise you, this story is something you will not forget. It all started on a Thursday morning. The sun was out, but my room still felt cold. I had been working late every night that week. Not because someone told me to, but because I was close to closing the biggest deal of my life, a deal worth $2 million. It was a deal I had worked on for months. Every phone call, every email, every meeting, I had done it all on my own. I believed that this deal would finally give me a break. I thought I would finally earn what I deserved. But that morning, something strange happened. I was at my desk looking over the final contract draft when I saw an email from HR. It was short. Only one sentence. It said I needed to meet them in their office at 11 a.m. There was no reason given, no subject, no explanation, just a time and a location. I sat there staring at the screen for a few seconds. My heart started to beat faster. I didn't know why, but something felt off. I took a deep breath and told myself to stay calm. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe they just needed to talk about some paperwork. But inside, I knew something was wrong. I walked to the HR office exactly at 11 a.m. My boss was already there. He didn't smile. He didn't even look at me. He was staring at a folder on the table like he didn't want to be there. The HR lady gave me a small smile, but it was nervous. She looked like she didn't want to say what she was about to say. And then, just like that, they told me I was being let go. There was no warning, no reason, no thank you. Just a paper to sign and a box to collect my things. At first, I didn't react. I couldn't. My brain was frozen. It didn't make sense. I had done everything right. I was about to bring in one of the biggest deals the company had ever seen. I had been working day and night for months, and now, just days before the deal was closing, they were firing me. I asked them why, but they gave me some excuse about restructuring. They said it wasn't personal. They said it had nothing to do with my performance, but I knew they were lying. I could feel it in the way they avoided my eyes. I packed my things in silence. No one said goodbye. No one looked at me. I walked out of the building holding a small cardboard box with my mug, a few papers, and the pen I always used to take notes in meetings. I sat in my car and stared out the window. I didn't even turn the engine on. I just sat there, trying to understand what had just happened. I thought about the deal. I thought about the client I had worked so hard to convince. I thought about the commission I was about to receive. $60,000. That money was going to change my life. And now it was gone. I started remembering things. Small things. A conversation I had heard a few months earlier. One of the sales guys had joked that the company sometimes lets people go just before their commissions are due. He said it with a laugh like it was something normal. Back then, I thought it was just a rumor. Now, it didn't feel like a joke. It felt real. I felt used. I felt like I had been nothing but a tool for them. They let me do all the work, and right before it was time to reward me, they pushed me out. I drove home in silence. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just kept thinking about every hour I had spent on that deal. Every late night. Every weekend I skipped, with my family. Every time I worked through lunch just to get things done, I gave that company everything I had. And they threw me away like I was nothing. I walked into my apartment and put the box on the floor. I sat down on my couch, still wearing my office clothes. And that's when the tears came. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet tears running down my face. I felt tired. I felt empty. I felt broken. I didn't sleep much that night. My mind kept going in circles. I kept asking myself why. What did I do wrong? What could I have done differently? But I also started asking another question, one that was small at first but kept getting louder. What if this wasn't just bad luck? What if they planned this? What if they knew exactly what they were doing? The next morning, I didn't want to get out of bed, but I forced myself to sit up. I made coffee. Even though I couldn't taste anything, I opened my laptop and started looking through all my emails. I looked at every message related to the deal. I wanted to know exactly what they had on record. I wanted to see if there was any proof that I had done the work. As I read through the emails, something became clear. Everything was there. Every step of the deal was documented. My name was on every file. Every client reply was addressed to me. There was no doubt. I had done everything. They couldn't deny it. Then I opened my employee contract. I had signed it years ago, and I never really looked at it after that. But now I read every word, slowly, carefully, and that's when I saw something important. A clause that said, if an employee negotiated a deal and the client confirmed it in writing, the employee would still be owed the commission, even if they left the company, unless they were fired for cause. I wasn't fired for cause. They said it clearly. No misconduct, no warning, just restructuring. I sat back in my chair. My heart started beating faster again, but this time it was different. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't sad. I felt something else. I felt a spark. They had tried to take everything from me, but maybe, just maybe, I wasn't powerless. Maybe I still had something they didn't expect, proof. And with that proof, maybe I could fight back. I thought about the client. A kind man in his late 50s. We had worked closely for months. He trusted me. We had built a good relationship. He had once told me that he respected how I handled the process. I remembered that he had even sent me a message saying I was the reason he chose our company. I found that message. It was still in my inbox. I read it again and again. That message was not just kind words, it was evidence. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do yet, but I knew I had to act. I couldn't just sit back and let them get away with it. I couldn't let them erase all my work. I couldn't let them keep the money I had earned. This wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about dignity. It was about respect. It was about showing them that I was not someone they could walk over. I spent the rest of the day collecting everything. Emails, files, meeting notes, chat messages, call logs. I saved everything in a folder. I even wrote down my memories of how the deal started, how the meetings went, what the client had said, what my boss had promised. Every detail mattered. I wanted to be ready. I didn't know what the next step would be, but I knew I had to be prepared. I couldn't go into this fight half ready. If I was going to do this, I had to do it right. That night, I sat on my balcony with a blanket around me. The city lights were quiet. I looked up at the sky and said something out loud for the first time. I said, I'm not letting this go. I didn't know who I was saying it to. Maybe to myself, maybe to the stars, maybe to the God who was watching me in that moment. But I meant it. Deep in my heart, I meant it. I was done being quiet. I was done being afraid. I remembered all the times I had stayed silent in the past, all the times I let things go because I didn't want to make trouble, all the times I told myself to be the bigger person. But not this time. This time, they had crossed a line, and I wasn't going to back down. The next morning, I made a list, a real list, on paper. I wrote down everything I needed to do, who I needed to call, what I needed to gather. I wrote down the name of the client, the date of the contract, the clause in my agreement. I made copies of everything. I started building my case, step by step. And with each step, I felt stronger. I didn't feel like a victim anymore. I felt like someone who had been tested, and I was ready to respond. This wasn't just a job I had lost. It was a part of my identity. I had given my best, and they had tried to throw it all away. But they didn't know me. They didn't know the fire I carried inside. They didn't know that quiet people don't stay quiet forever. And they were about to learn that when you push someone to the edge, sometimes they rise, sometimes they fight back, and sometimes they win. The morning after I made my list, I sat quietly with my coffee, holding the pen in one hand and my notes in the other. My phone was next to me, and I kept looking at one number I had saved long ago. It belonged to a friend of a friend. She was a lawyer. I had never spoken to her before, but I had heard people say she was smart and strong, the kind of person who fights for people like me. I took a deep breath and called her. My voice was shaking a little, but I spoke slowly. I told her what had happened. I explained everything from the beginning. The deal, the months of work, the sudden firing, the emails, the contract, the message from the client. She didn't interrupt me. She just listened. When I finished, there was silence for a few seconds. Then she said something that gave me strength. She said, "You did everything right." She asked me to send her all the documents. She said she would. Read them that night. She told me not to worry, and that we would talk again in the morning. I felt something I hadn't felt in days. Hope. I emailed everything to her, made copies of all the files, and went to bed feeling a little lighter. The next morning, she called me back. Her voice was calm and clear. She said, "This is a strong case." She explained that what my company did was not just unfair, it was also possibly illegal. They couldn't fire me without cause and take the commission that I earned. She said the message from the client helped a lot. It showed that I was the one who built the relationship, managed the deal, and brought it to the finish line. She said we had to move quickly. The deal had not closed yet, but it was close. She explained that if we acted now, we could send a legal notice to the company before they tried to hide anything or pretend that I had nothing to do with it. I agreed. I told her I wanted to do whatever it takes. She began writing the notice that day. She included everything: the contract clause, the email proof, the timeline of my work, and even the conversation I had with HR when they let me go. She kept it professional but firm. She made it very clear that if they did not respond within 7 days, we would take legal action. It wasn't about threats, it was about justice. I trusted her completely. While she worked on the legal part, I decided to call the client again. I didn't mention the fight. I just wanted to talk to him. I wanted to thank him for the kind words he sent and for trusting me with the project. When I called, he answered right away. He sounded surprised to hear from me. I asked him if he knew I was no longer with the company. He said no. He said no one told him. They just changed the contact person. I could hear the confusion in his voice. He asked me if everything was okay. I told him the truth. I didn't go into too much detail, but I said I was let go without reason, just a few days before the deal was going to close. I said I was sorry I couldn't finish the project with him, but I was grateful for the chance to work together. He was silent for a moment. Then he said something that I will never forget. He said, "I chose your company because of you, not because of their name, because of how you handled things." He said he still trusted me. Then he asked if he could do anything to help. I thanked him. I told him I only needed one small favor. I asked him if he could write a short email confirming that I had been the lead on the deal, that I was the person he worked with the entire time. He agreed without hesitation. The email came within the hour. It was short but powerful. It said that I was the only person he had dealt with, and that I had guided the project from the start. I sent that email straight to my lawyer. When she saw it, she called me back with excitement in her voice. She said, "This seals it." We sent the legal notice the next day. It was delivered directly to the company. I knew they had received it, but I didn't hear anything for 3 days. No email, no call, nothing. I didn't know what they were thinking. Maybe they thought I would give up. Maybe they thought I was bluffing, but I wasn't. I knew I had the truth on my side. On the 4th day, they finally replied. Their legal team sent a short letter saying they were reviewing the matter. No apology. No details, just that they would look into it. My lawyer told me to stay calm. She said this was expected. She said they were buying time, trying to find a way out. But we had everything ready. We sent them more documents, more proof. We made it clear that we were serious. As the days passed, I started to feel something new. Power. Not the kind that makes you proud, but the kind that comes from knowing your value. I had felt so small when they fired me. I had felt invisible. But now, I saw things differently. I saw that I was strong, that I had rights, that I had a voice. While the legal part moved forward, I also started getting messages from some of my old coworkers. A few of them had heard what happened. One woman messaged me privately. She said something similar had happened to her 2 years ago. She said she had worked on a big deal, and then suddenly, she was let go before the commission came through. She didn't fight. She didn't have proof. But she remembered feeling the same pain I felt. I told her about what I was doing. She thanked me. She said maybe you'll help stop them from doing it again. That message stayed with me. It gave me even more strength. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about everyone who had been treated like they didn't matter. It was about showing companies that people deserve respect. After 2 weeks, the company made an offer. They said they would pay me part of the commission if I agreed to sign a document saying I would not talk about the case. My lawyer asked me what I wanted to do. I thought about it. It was tempting. It was a lot of money, but it was not the full amount. And it didn't come with an apology. It didn't come with respect. It was just a way to make me go away quietly. I told her no. I said I wanted the full commission. I wanted what I earned. Nothing more, nothing less. She supported my choice. She said, "Then we keep going." She filed the next legal step. It was a formal demand for full payment, and it also included a warning that we would go public if needed. That part scared me a little. I didn't want to be in the spotlight, but I also didn't want to be silent. A few more days passed, and then everything changed. The company came back with a new offer. This time, it was the full amount. Every dollar I was owed. They still didn't admit they were wrong, but they knew they couldn't win. They had no defense. The documents, the contract, the client's email, it was all too clear. My lawyer called me and said we did it. I sat on my couch, holding my phone in one hand, and I smiled. Not because of the money, but because I didn't give up. Because I stood up for myself. Because I turned my pain into something stronger. I told my lawyer thank you. She said, "No, thank you. You fought. You believed in your worth." That night, I looked at the list I had made on that first morning. Every item had a check mark. I had done everything I said I would do. I had kept my promise to myself. I didn't let them take what was mine. I thought the story was over, but it wasn't. What happened next surprised me. Other people started reaching out. People I didn't know. People who heard about my case through quiet whispers in the industry. They asked me questions. They told me their own stories. I listened. I helped where I could. I shared what I had learned. And little by little, something new began to grow. A feeling that maybe this fight had a bigger reason. Maybe I had gone through this not just to win a case, but to open a door. A door that others could walk through. A door that said, "You have a right to speak. You have a right to be treated with fairness." I had started this journey feeling broken, but now I felt something else. I felt whole. After the money came in, I didn't celebrate with a party or a trip. I just sat in silence for a while. I looked at my bank account and saw the number sitting there, the commission I had worked for, the money they tried to keep from me. I thought I would feel proud or happy. But what I felt was something else. It was quiet, like the sound after a storm. I had won, yes, but I had also changed. Something inside me was different now. Stronger, clearer. I was not the same person who walked out of that office with a box in her hands. That woman was scared, confused, and heartbroken. This woman now was awake. I started thinking about all the other people who were probably still walking into that same building every day. People who worked hard, stayed late, helped the company grow. People who had no idea that they could be next. That maybe one day, just like me, they could be called into a room with no warning and be told it was over. I knew what that felt like, and I knew how hard it was to fight when you feel small, alone, and unsure. So I made a decision. I wasn't going to just move on. I wasn't going to just forget. I was going to help others. I started by writing everything down. Not for the court, not for a lawyer, just for people like me. I wrote in simple words. I explained what I had done, how I collected my documents, how I found the right lawyer, how I stayed calm, how I said no when they tried to settle for less. I wrote about how to read your contract, what to look for, how to save proof, how to stay professional even when your heart is breaking. I shared that with a few women I knew who were also in sales. Then something unexpected happened. They shared it too. It spread from person to person. People started reaching out to me from different cities. Some worked in real estate, others in software, some in finance. All of them had stories. Some were fired unfairly. Some were pushed out quietly. Some had stayed silent for years because they were scared. I didn't have all the answers, but I had something they needed. I had walked through the fire and made it to the other side, so I kept sharing. I made a simple guide. I answered messages. I listened. I didn't tell people to fight unless they wanted to. I just showed them that it was possible, that they didn't have to just accept injustice, that sometimes the system can be challenged, and it starts with knowing your own worth. At first, it was small, just a few people, but then it grew. One day, I got a message from a woman I had never met. She said she watched how I handled everything. She said she was also about to be fired right before her commission was due, but she had seen my guide, and she had been ready. She showed her company that she knew the law. They backed down. They paid her. She told me, because of you, I didn't lose what I earned. I sat with that message in my hands for a long time. I read it over and over again. That one message made every hard day worth it. I realized something else too. This experience taught me that sometimes what feels like the worst thing in your life can actually lead to something better. When they fired me, I thought it was the end. I thought I was falling apart. But now I see it was a beginning. If they hadn't done what they did, I would still be working under them, still thinking I needed their approval, still giving my best to people who never planned to give anything back. That moment of loss became my moment of growth. I didn't just win money. I found myself, people started asking if I would go back into corporate work. I thought about it, but the truth is, I didn't want to. Not right away. I wanted to do something different. I wanted to create a space where people like me could learn, grow, and protect themselves. So I started something small. Just an online group at first. A place for women in high-pressure jobs to talk, ask questions, and support each other. No one was selling anything. No one was pretending to be an expert. We just shared real stories and honest advice. Over time, the group grew. We had people from all over the world, and every time someone posted a win, even a small one, we all celebrated. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about anger. It was about fairness, about reminding each other that we have value, that we are not just numbers or files or employees. We are people, and our work matters. One day, I got a call from the same lawyer who had helped me. She said she had seen what I was doing and wanted to be part of it. She offered to do a few free sessions in the group, just to teach people what their rights were. I said yes, of course. She didn't talk like a lawyer in those sessions. She spoke like a friend. Simple words, real examples. She helped people feel safe, and more than that, she made them feel seen. I looked back at the day I sat in my car with tears in my eyes and a box on my lap. That day felt like a lifetime ago. So much had changed. I had changed. I used to be afraid of losing my job. I used to think that if I wasn't working for someone else, I had no value. But now I understood that my value was never in my job title. It was in who I am, in how I treat others, in how I fight for what is right, even when I am scared. My story was not about a company or a contract. It was about truth. About how sometimes life takes away everything you know, not to punish you, but to push you, to make you see your own strength, to remind you that you are capable of more than you ever believed. Now, when someone tells me they're afraid to speak up, I tell them, I was too. I was scared every step of the way, but I walked anyway. And so can you, if you are watching this, and you feel like you've been treated unfairly. I want you to know something important. You are not alone. Your pain is real. Your confusion is real, but you have more power than you think. Start with your story. Write it down. Gather your proof. Speak to someone you trust. And most of all, believe that you deserve respect. Sometimes, life will test you in the most painful way. It will take things you thought were safe. It will close doors you thought would never shut. But in that darkness, something new can begin. Something strong. Something honest. Something that no one can take from you. I lost a job. But I found something much greater. I found my voice. I found my purpose. And I found that even when people try to silence you, your truth can still rise. So to anyone out there feeling small, tired and unseen, keep going. Keep fighting for yourself. Because you are not just a worker. You are not just an employee ID. You are a whole person. And your story matters. If my story helps even one person stand up for themselves, then everything I went through was worth it. This isn't just my win. It belongs to every woman who ever sat in silence wondering if she deserved better. You do, and now you know. You can take it back.